We have Godzilla versus Kong, the ultimate showdown. Godzilla last appearing in 2019's Godzilla King of the Monsters, and King Kong last appearing in Kong Skull Island in 2017. Now, I like kind of how these American giant monster films are kind of like learning. Like they realize I think a lot of the directors are becoming more aware that, the audience for these films, they are coming in for the fights. They're not coming in for the human story. And I think like King of the Monsters kind of didn't understand this as much because it did meander a bit too much here and there. Kong Skull Island, I think, mostly got this idea. I think they realized, look, you're not coming for the story of a photographer trying to prove himself, and you're not coming in there for, a love story that develops there, or the story of a maddening soldier trying to prove himself. You know that everyone came here to see King Kong and giant monsters brutalize some humans and then attack each other. And you got that in the film. And Godzilla vs. Kong is strong enough to know that, audiences are going to come for the title bout. And thankfully you get a lot of that. And I like how, the entire film is centered around, what these monsters have in terms of their motivations. They're not kept as, enigmas in the background that the humans are struggling to find out. Because, for the most part, I like that the fact that the humans in this world are more or less aware of what these monsters are doing and trying to figure them out better. So, King Kong is currently being held by the Monarch Corporation, who basically wants to keep King Kong in a cage away from Godzilla. Basically, protect King Kong from Godzilla, or more or less protect themselves from Godzilla and King Kong ever finding each other and fighting each other out for who will be the big titan of the earth. At the same time, Godzilla is attacking the Apex Corporation. So Apex is basically they've taken ownership of the skull of King Ghidorah from the last film, and basically want to try to develop their own giant monster. So while this is all kept under wraps, Godzilla's basically doing his own investigation, which involves destroying every Apex facility he can until he finds out, where the skull's being kept. So while Godzilla's doing that, King Kong is actually trying to find his lost homeworld, called the Hollow Earth, which apparently exists inside the Earth in kind of this lost world where gravity is weird and there's all these different monsters, like this cross between a snake and a stingray that can kind of fly through the skies. And I like the little journeys that they have here. Basically, they basically want to either go home or protect themselves or assert themselves. I guess that would be the easiest way. Is they're both trying to assert themselves as the dominant forces on the planet. And then of course, they do have some great showdowns here and there, but of course, they come together when they have a common enemy in Mecha Godzilla, who shows up by the end of the film. Now, I like the way that the film is shot. It's a huge improvement from Godzilla King of the Monsters, because in that film, we had to deal with seeing Godzilla in snowstorms, at night, during rainstorms, and you could barely see him. You could barely make him out. Now, if you want to make Godzilla a mystery and an enigma, similar to the 1950s film, I could dig that. I mean, hell, we did that with the 2014 film, where they didn't show a lot of Godzilla. They kept him mostly in the background and kind of slowly brought him into the fold. Basically the rules of Jaws, right? If you realize your monster isn't that big a thing, you hide them and you try to slowly build them up as the film goes along. But this is Godzilla versus Kong. You are going to have fights, you are going to have big showdowns between these giant monsters, and you want to be able to see everything. And thankfully, this film gives you all these great shots. The first bout between Godzilla and King Kong is when Godzilla is attacking King Kong, who's being transported by aircraft carriers. And they attack each other during the day. I mean, it's a little bit cloudy, but there's plenty of sun. There's great long shots where you can see full-body Godzilla and full-body King Kong laying blows on one another. And you can also have your nice little close-up and medium shots as well that get up close with the action. And I like the fact that the way it's set up, you don't lose track of the fight. You know perfectly well where Godzilla is at every time during the fight. You know where King Kong is at every time during the fight. And even scenes where you see him from the human perspective. There's a great shot where King Kong basically topples over an aircraft carrier that goes underwater, and we see, from the human perspective, how it shifts into the water, but we still see King Kong. We still know where he is in the scene, and we still know where he is in the middle of the fight. It's not just like shaky cam and water's going everywhere and there's too cloudy out and you can't see anything. You know where everyone is at this time. And I think this works to the benefit of the final showdown of the film, where they attack each other in Hong Kong. And they attack each other at night in the city. But much like Pacific Rim, the city is very well lit. So you can have great lighting here. There's a lot of like strong, like kind of like green and red lighting throughout the city that creates this great little like neon effect, which is amped up a little bit by the little bits of like synth in the soundtrack that really work very, very well. So that you can not only understand what's going on in the fight, but you can actually make out like some emotion in the characters. Like they don't just feel like blank slates. I mean, like Godzilla, there's only so much you can do with his attitudes and reactions. But thankfully, King Kong does have a lot of expression. And I mean, if you're going to root for anyone in this film, it's obviously King Kong, because King Kong is more sympathetic. He has more to fight for. He has more of a lineage. He has a lot more to his character, and he's most importantly, he's a lot more expressive. You can see his face. You can see when he feels pain and sadness and some sense of relief and some anger and rage within him. That it's easier to feel for him. So I mean, I feel like the whole like team thing is silly, but if you're gonna count me in, obviously it's Team Kong, because King Kong seems to be able to better react with the humans. And speaking of the humans, you're probably wondering, well, why haven't I talked about any of the human characters in this film? Like, why haven't I? Isn't there anything to them? And yeah, there's some returning characters here. I mean, you have Millie Bobby Brown still around trying to track down whatever Godzilla's doing. You have kind of a fun role by Brian Tyree Henry, who plays this conspiracy theorist within Apex, who gets in a few. I mean, he's comic relief. He's there for some fun stuff. You kind of dig him. Then you have your standard action hero played by Alexander Skarsgård. You have Kyle Chandler returning as the concerned father who's still trying to like figure out what Godzilla's doing. And then you have like your standard bad guy, your corrupt CEO who doesn't realize he's gone too far until Mechagodzilla kills him. You have another turncoat who basically comes along for the ride and wants to, is only in it for personal gain. But these stories are mostly kind of smaller than they were in like previous films. Thankfully, they're smaller. Like it feels like this film has about the same kind of like large cast that the other films had, but uses the characters sparingly. Like, it realizes, look, these characters are only here more or less as ciphers for exposition about what's going to happen with King Kong and Godzilla. Now, sure, it would be nice if we could have more of a relatable human story, and we kind of have had that with the Godzilla film. A lot of people will be quick to point out that, yes, we had Shin Godzilla, a film where the human story was actually... I found the human story in Shin Godzilla a lot more interesting than the Godzilla story, because it focused more on the satire of the bureaucracy that goes into handling disasters. It was really interesting, and I felt like it had that same kind of resonance that the 1950s film, where it was trying to say something with Godzilla and how our culture reacts to disasters and how we function as a society and try to deal with it, and how the government has this weird outlook on it. It was very interesting and fascinating, but if we're doing giant monster films with big special effects, for an American audience, for big blockbusters, we're not going to have that. So you're just going to get these kind of like standard stories for the human characters. And on that level, all I can really expect from these types of films on that level, because they're never going to, go that far with, making characters more compelling than that. You just want good fights. And on that level, I actually really enjoyed the film. I got a lot of cool fights in there. The fight scenes were fun. The film delivers exactly what it promises. I mean, it's Godzilla versus King Kong. There's not really going to be much of a huge human story that I think a lot of people are going to be coming in for. But I think the other thing too is that I like the way that it's staged and like the conclusion it comes to, even though it's kind of one of those like kind of maybe the real Godzilla versus Kong were the friends we made along the way. That type of deal. So like anyone coming in this film hoping that, you know, Godzilla or King Kong is going to win and they're going to have their own debates and stuff like that. I personally don't care who's the stronger monster here, because ultimately it doesn't matter. You know, that whole fight is going to be mutable by whoever's directing it, whoever's writing it, and whoever, you know, however Warner Brothers positions it. Obviously, for Warner Brothers' position, they want to stage this so they can have more films. So obviously, you know, both aren't going to die. Or if they do die, they're going to come back to life some weird way. Which kind of begs the question. Maybe you could have, you know, go further with it. Because then you could kill them off. And like, well, you know, I'm speculating here. But for what the film is, for just being little more than just special effects fights and chaotic action, it's shot well. It's fun. It has a great soundtrack. It has some amazing sights with like the hollow earth, with like the shifting gravity. Kong gets some cool stuff with like his energy powered axe, and Godzilla does more of his fire atomic breath and stuff like that. The scenes are great. The actions is pretty fun. It's big, it's bold, it's the type of fun stuff you want to see on the big screen. And it thankfully delivers on what it promises. So I feel like for giant monster films within like the American blockbuster market, we've kind of gotten there. We've kind of like figured out how to make them work. Now, hopefully, maybe we can, you know, learn from Shin Godzilla and have like more of a human story the next time around. Because honestly, where can you go from here next? Are you like? I mean, I suppose you could do like a tag team. I suppose you could do like something like Destroy All Monsters, or, you know, you could have Godzilla and Kong teaming up to, you know, fight a reincarnated Ghidorah, or you know, or bring Mothra, and, you know, have Mothra in the mix so that Mothra, King Kong, and Godzilla could all fight King Ghidorah or something like that. But that's all speculation. That might happen. Heck, it seems like it might happen. I mean, this film has been doing really well in the box office, so who knows what could happen next. But yeah, in terms of Godzilla versus Kong, I dug the fight. It's a fun fight.